Happy April Fools, everybody. Feast your eyes upon today's video for some of the worst but funniest takes in RPG Maker horror history. But remember, this is April Fools, and do not do anything that will pose life-threatening decisions for both yourself and anybody around you. Remember, this is an April Fools video, so remember to not take everything that I say too seriously. And my real takes on all of the games included will be at the very end, in which I will actually tier every game accordingly. Thank you very much for watching and enjoy the video. Flow at E. What kind of flow does this game have? Akamitan, really peak of horror, A tier. A mighty bus stop, S for this stop is truly amazing. And at E again for ain't about to comment further on this adventure. Answer prayers, did not really answer any prayers, F tier. Alice Murray, F tier, not that rememberable. Angel of Death, also F tier. For goodness sakes, these aren't angels at all. Very bad description. Annie and the Art Gallery, D. D for didn't think too fondly. Aria Story, E also for below average. Aeoni, S tier. What a cracking game with so many spoopy jump scares. Bevel's Painting, B. B for Bevels. Blackout Hospital, E for this hospital is so blacked out that I cannot see in front of my face. And that is a visual thing, not a racial thing, by the way. Blank Dream, S for this dream has blanked me out so much I cannot remember what the hell went on, but I was inspired by it anyways. Burial, B. B for Burial. Candle, S for goodness sakes, this game innovates in so many different ways. Cat in the Box, also S for this cat in the box was not there, so therefore no cats were harmed within the tale of this series. Claw's Requiem, A for this Requiem was goodness sakes awesome. Coffin of Ashes, A for this coffin really did not have anybody in it, so therefore there were no ashes performed. Colorless Poem, B for this game was brutally straightforward and to the point in which you will be able to go through it successfully without an external guide. Corpse Party Rebuild, E for this rebuild did not really reflect the specialities in which the original conjured. Dear Mariko, S for this yandere is really going to be an S tier waifu for you. Desert Nightmare, A for this nightmare is not really so bad after all. Devil of the Mirror, C for this is mid, like a C, mid. Dream of Gluttony, A for this gluttonous adventure is really worthwhile. Dream of Mary, F for not really that inspirational and didn't really give headway for too many inspiring adventures afterwards or within the game. Elevator Ritual, this game is so thorough that I had to put it here. I simply love elevators, not being able to get past monsters and being able to go through a really challenging endeavor. Empty Head, also S. Well, I really like this game anyways, but S for this head game. Anyways, I'm really going off track here. Enroll, F for what the goodness sakes was going on within this game. Like, everything just took place within the mind of a boy. I don't know what kind of adventures went on there, but it was really morbid in its own ways. Fantasy Maiden's Odd Hideout, A for this hideout is awesome. False Outrum, C for well, this I don't really have a comment really, it's just mid. Feather of Praying, A for this feather really has me tickling in a good way as well. Flesh Child, F for Flesh, also Flesh, Blood and Concrete, also F for the same reasons. Forest of Animals, I love the B pass for goodness sakes. Forest of Drizzling Rain, D for didn't really give a bother for the remake or the original. Ghost School, B for this Ghost School is brutally scary. Giselle, F for, well, this short adventure was just a little bit too short and didn't really give anything for the player to be able to do. Good job. has its own tier below F, and I could not fit it in, and the same with Grimm's Hollow. They both begin with G, and they both go in the G tier. Haunted Vlogs. This funny adventure is really ticklish. Hello, Charlotte. S4, for goodness sakes, this adventure is so big and bizarre that I had to put it here. Ebe, F4, it's goddamn overrated, and I will not include a word which begins with F, but it's a rude word, but I'm not including it anyways. But it is overrated. Imaginary Friends. C4, I didn't really finish it because I couldn't get past a certain step, so for my adventures, C4, a collected conclusion. Infectious Nightmare, A4, this nightmare was so infectious that I really had to give it a good tier. Last week, S tier for last week is a great time because it was last week that I played last week. Dead in the Line, D4, I didn't really have the ability to get through all of the monsters in the game. Light, E4, this eating experience was not worthwhile. Living Playground, E4, this living playground was not that living. They were all automatons at the end of the day. Lucy, D4, didn't really get any inspirations from other games aside from the fact that it had a hidden ending which was inspired by The Witch's House. Mad Father, F4, the Doctor really gave me the heebie-jeebies. Memento, A4, it is outstanding. Mermaid Swamp, where was Mermaid Swamp? Oh yeah, E4, this game didn't really elevate or put anything inspirational involved. Midnight Train, C4, well, it's a bit mid. Just like in the name, Midnight Train. Misao, S4, this is magnificent in its own ways, and there is nothing involved and no human suffering was involved whatsoever within the game. Megako Castle, S4, those little yellow guys were so cool. Midnight Mulaney, S4, the puzzles were so out of alignment that I could not give it anything other than an S tier. Nightmare of the Snow. I hate my own dialogue. Midnight Snow. This is probably where I'd actually put it anyways, I think. Perhaps that will be. C4, pretty mid. It's got some good aspects, got some bad aspects, got some difficult aspects, got some good aspects. No Overmortal Fate, F4, this adventure did not really give you any kind of fulfillment and there's no character development at all. Nostalgia, S4, this game is so superb that it really stumped me, and it took me over 1,000 days to be able to put together a video in order to actually fathom out what the last puzzle was of the demo. Off, B4, well, it fell off S and A, but it's still good enough to be a T. A T. That's one of the worst rankings. Omori, F4, well, I had to wait so long in order to play it. Paranoiac, B4, this game gave me so much paranoia that I forgot why it was an A or S. Paranormal Syndrome, this is truly an S tier game, and if you say so otherwise, well, you're on. Pedestal, this really fell off the pedestal for the above two rankings, but I had to put it in B anyways. Pilgrim, C4, this Pilgrim is rather mid, but I have to put it somewheres. Pocket Mirror, I carried this thing around and it just deteriorated over time because nobody gave it the attentive care in order to actually survive from the elements, so E it goes. Project Cat, also E. This cat really did not give me a good time when I tried to stroke it. Prom Dreams, A4, this dream is ecstatic, and actually I would put this together if this was a serious tier list. Like Prom Dreams, very good game. Purgatory, it was very good, but it really ruined it with the second game. For goodness sakes, a demonic mode gave me so many nightmares. Purple, it's just a colour. Re-In, F4, with for goodness sakes with the next update, it's taking so long. Remember, this is an April Fool's video, so whatever I say most of the time does not really reflect my actual opinions of these games. Re-In is actually awesome. Weekender, S4, this game is so psychotic that it is unique in its own ways. Remember, F4, this game did not make me cry even once. Ruthless Smile, A4, well, probably the same reasons as Colorless Poems, but it really magnified my views of this game. Spygel Ill, C4, well, it's rather mid. Stitched, C4, this game was rather stitched together. Well, the dolls were rather stitched together anyways. Security, or however you want to pronounce it, A4, astonishing, not outstanding. 3DS is A. It is F4, it is still in the demo phase. By the way, I do recommend checking it out. The Boogeyman, D4, that boogie really gave me a below mid time. The Coffin of Andy and Lily, D4, I didn't really give a care for the characters in the game, especially Ashley, she was not that cool. The Crooked Man, B4, actually, this would actually be well to put the Crooked Man anyways, but it's rather crooked, so it went slightly over to the left if you put it on a landscape format, and it leaned to the left where B is on the left and D is on the right. The Grey Garden, B4, this garden really could use some colours, but the adventure and story is pretty solid. The Hanged Man, also again B like the Crooked Man, but it really hung itself out to dry. The Looking Glass, D4, this Looking Glass did not really reflect back, so I'm probably am a ghost. The Sandman, S tier for Sandman, no description needed. The Wedding, A4, well, weddings are awesome anyways. It is a wonderful time to see two people come together in holy matrimony. The Well Speaks to Me, D4, well, this well did not talk back to me that often. The Witch's House, F4, well, I had to read another novel in order to try and understand the full story of this game. Like, why isn't all of the story of The Witch's House included inside the game itself? Why is most of the story outside of the game in a goddamn novel? Timeline, C4, well, I would actually put it here anyway. C4 is rather mid, but it's a lovely set of adventures with a very, very funny character involved of Noelle. Ultraviolet, I know better than to rinse this one to oblivion, even in an April Fool's joke video, so I'm giving an S overall. Underworld Capital Incident, it is a C for, well, this world is really in its capital, in its prime. Wooden Horror in the Great Blue Sea, A for this adventure is outstanding. After all, you do travel the 7 seas after all. Wizard of White Box, this is D for, well, this white box did not really give me any sense of direction on how to complete the game. Which is hard, despite having a bunch of key rings behind me whenever I did webcam. F4, this adventure, this takes so freaking long. Wolf and Rabbit. B4, well, this game did a brilliant job in some aspects, but not great in every other aspect. Your Turn to Die. D4, your turn to die might be sooner than you expected. Umituki, F4, this game took too much time in order to try and fathom out how to reach every corner of just even one room, let alone the hundreds of thousands of rooms inside the game itself. Like you could fit an entire game inside Umituki in just one of the rooms in which it encapsulates. Umanishi, B4, this Umaniki fan game is actually pretty cool. Begin with a B. Umaniki is E for this original is really And finally UQ C for this Umaniki fan game is rather mid. Now just look at this tier list and be absolutely mesmerized by some of the placements, or if not all of the placements that I've put down for it. Have some heavenly soundtrack to really capture the magnitude of this tier list, and just know that this is the only canonical tier list that matters within the RPG Maker horror gaming space. No, actually, if this was my canonical tier list, then I'd be absolutely ashamed of myself. Like, there's so many things wrong with this tier list. Why did I even put this together in the first place? Well, the answer is pretty obvious, because it is April Fool's. And on April Fool's, you don't do anything too seriously that will affect the lives of others, such as telling somebody that you're going to break up with them. Joke's on you, April Fools. Wait, what? Wait, why you put all of your things in boxes? Well, damn, this April Fool's joke went too far. But anyways, this is actually my canon tier list of every single game that I have played. Well, actually, this is not all of the games I've played, but a vast majority of the games that I've played throughout the years on the channel. And this probably only covers like half the games I've played. Like Umatuki, I still think is below mid, just simply because it is so big and you cannot really explore everywhere unless you have multiple days of free time in order to try and fathom out everywhere. So that's why it's put in D, but every other aspect of this game is fantastic. But it's just a simple matter of fact that it's just way too big of a game in order to try and comprehend. But within the past, like, 2-tier videos, like, some opinions I've changed over the years. Like, when you get older and when you've experienced more adventures, sometimes your viewpoints of other games have kind of differed or enhanced depending on what your perspective is. Like, your perspective is never really concrete at any given point in time. It's just at the moment of when you create that tier list, it's sort of, well, this is what I view at this point in time. So in this case, I absolutely love .flow and I absolutely love Umaniki, their S tier. Before it's a Drizzling Rain, like the original, will probably be down a C tier, but that is extremely expanded with the remake, with the village and all that, and all the side quests. S tier. Grimm's Hollow, a fantastic little spoopy horror game. Midnight Train, I'm so looking forward to the remake. Noelle the Mortal Fate, it's just so adventurous. Off, a timeless classic. Project Cat, it is hilarious, and its puzzle aspects are really cool, with multiple variations of how you can get to the ending. Purgatory 2 gave me an absolute blast. Re-In, despite not being complete, it is a wonderful tale. The Witch's House and the remake, mwah, chef's kiss. Angel of Death and also everything else is where they are, because that's how I view these different adventures. Like, Ib and Omori, I think, are two of the most overrated games, but they're certainly fantastic in their own ways. Like people praise them as if they're like the second coming of Jesus, and to me they're not S tier equivalent, but they're certainly up there. Pedestal, I was really impressed with that tale. You have to get really involved with that game in order to actually get to everything. It's not a game for everybody, but once you get into the meat and potato of the game, it is really great to engage. The Andy and Lele game that I played really recently on the channel, it is a fantastic little adventure, and Ashley is such a funny character. If you can get with a rather questionable sense of humor. I really loved Ultraviolet. It is rather one of the more placid Umaniki fan games. It is not that dark. I love Witch's Heart, Your Turn to Die, a great ordeal of adventures throughout that game in terms of survival. UQ have not finished it, but another great game. Mermaid Swamp and the remake, fantastic. Hello Charlotte. It's rather dazzling to get into the universe of that game, but it's another game like Pedestal where you have to get quite involved into the lore and also to try and understand what the hell is going on. Giselle, I thought, was a fantastic little adventure, and also with characters as well that you can really get engaged with. Endroll, another fantastic game. Like what I said in the April 4 sections, like, this really is an Endroll, and cue the credits for goodness sakes. Dream Mary, really inspirational. The only thing that really got me down with this game was obviously the theming of the game. It's not something that I'd always get, what I would get behind at all. Like, the father in this game is just a bad individual in their own rights, and was a pretty great adventure. Answer Prayers, really different from other Umaniki fan games, especially with the fact that it was one of the first ones where the effects were actually displayed visually on the main menu. Blackout Hospital, I really love that adventure. Blank Dream, if you get past the really tenacious dark themes, like Blank Dream and Endroll are up there for two of the darkest themed RPG Maker horror games out there. If you get past that and really get into the story, they're great. Corpse Party, One of the truly most iconic games out there. Devil Mirror and the remake. I was quite fond of these games, but I probably gave this game a bit of an overrated aspect. False Alptrum, if you get past some of the cryptic puzzles, is a really cool game. Fleshchild and The Looking Glass, made by the same developer. Really cool concepts. Good job, really did a good job on its game. Then in the line, I didn't manage to complete simply because of the fact that the bosses gave me such a hard time and I could not get past one of those particular bosses. I think it was like the Icicle one, where you had to literally survive its attacks, but it was just simply too hard for the average player to try and get past. Mad Father, really great game. Where was Misao actually? Because I think I've lowered it. Yeah, it was actually here. This is Misao over here. My opinion of it has really gone a little bit down over the years. Like, I think I prefer Mad Father nowadays, but when I initially started out playing RPG Maker horror games, I was really fond of Misao just because of the funny aspects of it, but I think I gave it a bit of an overrated perspective and all that jazz. What is this one here? A Mighty Bus Stop, quite a solid game. Annie in the Art Gallery, very solid game. Bevel's Painting, not that horrific, but it is quite nice in its own aspects. Burial, translated by the same team. I wasn't as fond of it as the Devil of the Mirror and the remake, but still a very good adventure. Empty Head, a very good adventure. Flesh, Blood and Concrete, quite a nice adventure in its own ways. It was quite hard to wrap around what kind of direction the game went through. Last week, quite a solid game, quite inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's with the night aspect and things always changing as each night progressed, but maybe it was just indirectly inspired by, and it's just a factor that those two share a common theme. I prefer Light Trilogy over Alice Mari. For some other reason, Alice Mari just seemed a little bit of a lesser experience. I prefer the funnier tale of Light between the two main characters. Living Playground is a very solid game. I would say it's closer to B than it is to D. Spyjail Eel, I managed to complete the game. Out of the different games that the translator has translated of this tale alongside Color's Poem and Ruthless Smile, this is my favorite among them. Sweetie Yesterday, in its current state as a demo, it is a C tier. I'm probably going to lean towards predicting it will be a B or an A when it is completed, if not even an S tier, depending on the amount of cute and horror that lies within. The Boogeyman is my third favourite among the different ones that are projected for the game. The Cookie Man will always be my favourite. It's the original of the Strangeman series, and it's my favourite as well. But also the Hangman is up there as well. The Sandman for me was my least favourite, probably because it doesn't have as much horror involved. It had more of a fantastical theme to it. Not that I don't mind fantastical, but it just seemed to sway a bit too far to fantastical, rather than lean towards what made the series itself, for me personally, so good. Let's see now, what have we got here? This is Underworld Capital. It's a rather mid-game. You're going through a lot of different horrific experiences, trying to face yourself and then facing those around you. You're part of a secretive organization. Wolf and Rabbit, quite a solid game. Imaginary Friends, I could not really finish. There was one puzzle in it, which I think was bugged when I was playing it, and it probably still has not been fixed since. Haunted Vlogs was... I probably overrated the game when I initially played it, but it's okay. What have we got here? Ghost School... It's kind of inspired by Corpse Party. It's closer to C than it is E. I think Memories of Fear did a very good job with the translation, but the characters... I think the characters in this game, you gotta have a bit of a niche taste towards whether you like them or not. Feather Plane, quite a solid game. Out of the games that have been translated from Chinese to English on Steam, this is probably the best game that there is. Obviously, Nightmare of Malini, and I think there's one other game as well, which I've not listed here. Those games are not only poorly executed when it comes to their translation quality, but also the game's quality as well. Dream of Gluttony, I really did not like some of the puzzle aspects of the game where the QTE is very, very precise. Dear Mariko, I had this like C or B within my tiers. I think over time I've grown fond less and less of the game, but it's still quite up there. It's definitely closer to C than it is E. Aeoni is a bit of a gimmicky game. Like, you've got to be really involved with the silliness of the game in itself. But for me, it's not always about the silliness, even though retrospectively, I really liked the silliness in The Coffin of Andy and Lily. But the silliness in that game is not only fresh to me, but it's also very, very well executed. Pocket Mirror, sound-wise and visually, this game is amazing. But what really lets this game down for me is just the fact that this game is so confusing with its lore aspect. Like, it feels like you're meant to play Little Goody Two Shoes whenever that releases first before trying to understand this game. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself into a hypnotic spiral, as I was meant to say. Purgatory is fine. Didn't really give a lot of lore when it came out, so that's why this is rather down there in comparison to Purgatory 2. Purgatory 2 was simply fantastic for me. Weekender, kind of like Blank Dream and Endwell, had a lot of questionable subjects involved within this game, a lot of themes involved that would really question your sense of humanity. But unlike those two games, this game didn't really have a huge amount of quality to it that really gripped me. The Sandman is my least favourite of the Strangeman series, but for me definitely it's closer to C than it is E. Wooden Hole in the Great Blue Seas is probably a questionable spot for it, but I didn't really think too fondly of this game as time has gone on. Like, the Grey Garden for me is probably my favourite out of the developers' games. It certainly leans towards less of the word that rhymes with grape. Wizard of White Box is a solid experience, where for me it's not hugely fondable. Umituki, I think I said earlier, this game, if it wasn't so massive in terms of each room size, not the amount of rooms that the game has, but the size of each room, if they were all condensed down to like half of the size, then the navigation around the game itself would be far more accessible for other people. Akame 10, the horror is good, but the story itself is a bit confusing to follow. Claw's Requiem, didn't think hugely of this game. Probably I ranked it C or D in the past, but it's gone down there a little bit for me throughout the years just because the characters in the story didn't really grip me. Like, I think a few times I felt sorry for the girl in the game, but aside from that, not a huge amount really gripped me. Coven of Ashes, the puzzle's really cryptic in this game. Desert Nightmare didn't really capture me. Like, it was one of the older games that I played, but it didn't really capture me. And the overall game was a little bit on the negative side when it comes to the synopsis and stuff. Fantasy Maiden Odd's Hideout. I preferred Claw's Requiem over Fantasy Maiden Odd's Hideout. Like, this probably for me is closer to F than it is D, whereas Claw's Requiem is closer to D than F. But it didn't really capture me at all. Infectious Nightmare, like, some people really love this game, but for me, the two protagonists didn't really capture me. Lucy, this has really gone down over years for me. Like, I really liked it at the very start, but I realized that over time, it wasn't really a huge amount of story to be captured by. Ruthless Smile, when I played this game initially, I would have probably put this in F tier. The reason why Ruthless Smile to me is not that memorable for me is because when I initially tried to play the game, when it initially released in the English translation, the clues given within the game are very misdirectional and misleading. Not discrediting the translator, but the translation quality was quite misdirectional for the player, especially for players that did not look up a Japanese walkthrough and try to look at the Japanese words within it. Sukuti, not really up there for me. The Wedding, not really a huge amount of memorable experiences. And Mogega Castle has been moved actually from E to F over the years, just simply because it's not only not that memorable, but a lot of the tropes in that game is really kind of like Wooden Hole in the Great Blue Seas, with a word that rhymes with grape, but it's kind of more cemented with those little yellow guys. Nightmare Malini, the translation quality not only affected the grammar of the game, but also how you perceive the puzzles in the game. Elevator Ritual, I could not for the life of me try and fathom out how to get past some of the monsters in the game. And the hints given the game are so misdirectional that I really was. Like, at the end of the series, I was like, I'm so done with this game. Nostalgia, kind of the same as Elevator Ritual, but on a much smaller scale. The developers really insisted at the time of when this game initially released in its demo form and never had a full game release, that the game has like simple hints that the player can really easily grasp in order to solve it. I myself and many others were like, what the bloody hell were you thinking? Forest of Animals. Oh, goodness sakes, what do I even say about this game that not anybody else has said? Like, I think my experience with this game is pretty self-explanatory, and some of the endings to get to are really hard to actually encounter. Pilgrim, there's nothing inherently wrong with this game, but there's nothing really to really grab a player. Like, probably besides a few story elements, this didn't really grab me. And finally, Memento, the bosses are just so hard, and some of the puzzles themselves didn't really have any hints in the game. Like, especially the optional puzzles that requires to be solved in order to get to some of the better endings in the game. But hopefully the criticism about the below games aren't too harsh. Like, sometimes when I give criticism about the game, they're literally like in the moment of playing the game. So sometimes throughout the years, my criticism kind of softens as I realize perhaps at the very point in time when I criticized the game, I was too harsh about it. Like with Rufus Smile, at the very given point in time, like, I like the kind of enigmatic nature of it, which is why I probably put it like in C and D. But at the time of recording the game and trying to get through the game, I was like, you're trying to send me to one place, but yet that one place does not provide the answers, and you have to try and go to multiple other aspects of the game to try and get the answer that you want, but still does not lead you anywhere. But thank you so much for watching, and remember that in the initial segment of this game, this tier list is an April Fool's thing, so do not think too harshly about this tier list. Like, I would never even in my worst nightmares consider to put The Witch's House in F tier. Like, that is just a crime in itself. And putting Midnight Train in mid, that's a crime in itself. Like, this is definitely what my current opinions reflect on all of these games. But thank you so much for watching. Remember, April Fools is about light pranks, but nothing that would really hurt you or others around you. If you think that doing something like telling your partner that you're going to break up with them, then you got to really question to yourself, why would you do that in the first place? Like, why would you play with someone else's emotions, especially somebody who you're really close with? Thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.